When trying to scale, lowering the TROAS target, there's a risk that primarily increases the CPC on traffic you're already buying rather than driving new volume. What's your take on that risk? And absolutely yes. If you do not have CAPI imports, if you're not doing first click imports of new customers, yes, that will absolutely happen because you're dropping the TROAS on traffic you've already bought, because you're counting everybody who's new, who's returning, who's warm, who's cold, who's omni-channel, who's self-channel created, which means retargeting Meta versus generating more Google. But the risk when you do the CAPI imports is actually almost like non-existent.
On to PMAX.
So everyone knows that I really like CAPI imports. If you haven't heard me say this 16 times on this video already, we started to use the CAPI imports in this company here for new customers. And we actually started on July 11th. We had our own, we launched a new Performance Max. And I launched Performance Max that was feed only, new customer only, brand terms excluded, 180 days of website traffic, and last since 2024 customer list excluded.
Okay.
Now, did it work? Kinda. It's still getting some existing customers at a ratio of 121 and 70. So yes, PMAX does go warm. We absolutely know that to be true. This is way warmer than our standard shopping. Our standard shopping is like 120 and 10. This is 120 and 70. And they are technically all ad event type. These are all click based. Like we can see, we have one conversion engaged view, 448 click based. So you can see, obviously, this is all click. Mm-hmm. So it's all click. It's all new customers. It will still get existing customers, but since it's non-brand, that's happy retention. Cool. That's the cream on top that we don't have to pay for. But there's a question actually from John Moran's dog that I thought was actually kind of interesting that says, when trying to scale, lowering the TROAS target, there's a risk that primarily increases the CPC on traffic you're already buying rather than driving new volume. What's your take on that risk? And absolutely yes. If you do not have CAPI imports, if you're not doing first click imports of new customers, yes, that will absolutely happen because you're dropping the TROAS on traffic you've already bought, because you're counting everybody who's new, who's returning, who's warm, who's cold, who's omni-channel, who's self-channel created, which means retargeting Meta versus generating more Google. But the risk when you do the CAPI imports is actually almost like non-existent. Here's what I mean by this. If you look at the cost, I took this campaign from $350 a day, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to crank that up to $4,000 a day. Let's see what happens. Mm-hmm. And I'll go through the change history because I do believe that this is something that is really interesting as a test. Because people usually say, hey, when you decrease TROAS or when you add in ad spend, things go haywire. And you'll see here, I went from 175 TROAS. I turned off my connected TV. That was 4 days before. And so basically since the 29th, the only thing I've done is change my 175 TROAS target down to 40. So I said, hey, you're trying to get a 175. What if you try to get a 40? And then I cranked the budget up from 1,300 to 1,500 per day. And then 2 days later, I cranked it up to 5,000. So we'll talk about that next. Yep. But what happened since the 29th, and this is why I think TROAS is, well, you can see the cost is like, woo, just scaling up. But what happened I made the change on the 29th. And if you look at the day of the 28th, 29th compared to the 31st or 30th and 31st, I have 267% more cost and 282% more conversion value from new customers only. My ROAS got better. So I went from having a 175 target, getting a 7.4, to a 40% target and got a 7.7. So it increased by 4.02%. And blast and tripled my budget stupid effectively. So TROAS is not a target. It's a floor or a restriction. The restriction is qualified by Google being prejudiced to a user depending upon do they think or do they know that person is going to convert. Because I know that this can't target warm or at least optimize for it. Also knowing the fact that I don't have to actually show up for search terms I'm like worried about: fat burning supplements, weight loss, anabolic boost, best libido. I'm not going to say that word. Best PM fat burner. It's men and women supplements. So what ended up happening here is I said, you know what? If you can't get that target, it's trying to get a 175, couldn't get a 7.5. I said, try to get a 40. It got 7.7. Now, new customer only, we have a mandate to not go over $250 per cost required first time customer. As long as we're under 250, unlimited budget. That's why I took it from that kind of ad spend to just kind of cranking it up. But you could absolutely take a $1,400 campaign and send it to $5,000 in 48 hours or 24 hours, really, and see immaculate performance. However, John Moran's dog, yes, we do see CPC increase. It went from $1.59 to $2.33. Do I believe it's on traffic that I was already getting, though? Absolutely not. I saw a better efficiency, not worse efficiency. I saw a better ROAS, and my conversion rate went up from 1.10 to 1.29. Why did this happen? Was non-brand traffic first. Existing customers aren't counted. I'm still selling existing customers. My CPA is under $100, which is fantastic. My NCAC is under 150. That's what I want. Right. But because I am targeting new only non-brand, I can scale. That's what I was like, all right, let's go to $5,000 a day. I'm going to take it to $10,000 a day next week. This thing's just going to keep skyrocketing to the moon as long as it's hitting that equal goal. But if I was not counting CAPI imports and I was not going after those new customers from first click, this thing would have just said, like, I'll grab a little from Meta, a little from TikTok, a little bit organic. Did you do an email today? How's the direct? I can bring a tribute back to myself. Hey, some brand, I'll take that too. Sure. And that doesn't scale. But if it's like, you're only allowed to go here, can you find more? Yes. And you just unleash the dog and it heads that direction rather than just spinning around in circles. So that's kind of the theory is the data will scale as long as the data is clean. But if the data is good enough, no, you will never win. Period. Yeah. It does not work.
What led you to try that? I'm just curious.
Because I've always used a low T ROAS strategy. That's what I typically say is when you're doing standard shopping, leave it 40%.
Right.
This is essentially standard shopping with a bit of dynamic remarketing in it that can't count existing customers. So now I have smart shopping back again.
Because of the CAPI imports. Okay. So it's retraining it in a different way.
And now here's what's cool is yes, it would have gone haywire. Watch this. If I do the all conversions tab here again. Okay, that's there. And I segment by conversion action. Watch this. This thing, when I said get more, it went, okay, I have 10 and 10. So that was getting 50-50. I was only optimizing, though, towards these 10 here. It only saw these 10. That's what it knew was happening, these 10 new customers. It was still getting another 11 returning customers. But because I'm only optimizing for first click CAPI imports of new customer only, when I scaled, my 12 went to 13. So my 12 existing customers went up to 13 existing customers. I got one more. My new customers went from 10 to 30. So I increased my new customers by 180% and increased my returning customers by 9. That does not happen when you are just blasting ad spend to the moon on PMAX. It does not choose the one it can see. Now it can, and that's why you're not going to pay for the traffic you're already receiving, John Moran's dog.
That's thank God he's here. And by the way, Lauren Schwartz is pissed at you. So I'm just telling you.
Yes. I do agree, though, that you need to educate and you need to give them information front in the feed. Yes, we are the Wally fat people. We are the Wally fat people.
Lauren gets it. She is the goat of all things creative, by the way. Yes, nobody else calls her that, but she is. She's the greatest of all time when it comes to creative. Yeah. And she was on that call with that client this week. I'm like, no, take your best stuff. She's like, put all your best content in front of everybody because we are the Wally fat people. So we didn't say that to him, but
it's fun.
That takes a real shift. That takes a real mind shift. Like everybody who's on this call is listening to this. This is not your father's Facebook ads. This is new. You got to spoon feed them everything in the feed and let the algorithm do the work. And it starts with great creative.
Exactly right.
Thankfully, we have the greatest creative team on the planet, which I think everybody here already knows about.